Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So welcome to this panel on AI-powered pedagogical transformation, visions of the 2040 classroom. I'm Min, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at GoodNotes, which is a leading digital note-taking app that's deployed in more than 17,000 schools across more than 100 countries, used by more than almost 3 million teachers. So really, in this discussion with schools every day about technology and AI use in the classroom, that's why I'm thrilled today to be in conversation with these three extraordinary panelists. We have Lord Jim Knight, former UK Minister for Schools, Digital and Employment, how very relevant, and a current active member of the UK House of Lords, Professor Rose Luckin, a leading world expert on AI in education and Professor Emeritus at UCL, and my good colleague, Rowena Chung, Director of Product at GoodNotes, responsible for the development of GoodNotes Classroom, which is an AI teaching companion that helps teachers to boost their productivity and effectiveness. So before I get to the panel, I love to ask the audience a question. So I'm going to ask you how you're feeling about AI usage in the classroom, whether you're excited, unsure, or anxious. So raise your hand if you're very excited about AI usage in the classroom.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, wow.
Wow. All right. Raise your hand if you're not sure about AI usage in the classroom, and you can raise your hand multiple times. Raise your hand if you're anxious about AI usage in the classroom. All right, panelists, this is your audience mix for today. Our three distinguished panelists have such compelling perspectives and wise guidance on how we might transform pedagogy to better prepare students for the coming or the current AI-infused world. So let's learn from them. Jim, Rose, and Rowena, if you'll indulge me, let's imagine a 5-year-old Betty, the naming of which I'll have to credit to Lord Knight. So Betty is going to start school this year and will be in university by 2040. The world of work in 2040 will have evolved in ways that we can't imagine today. And large language models will be able to generate far more sophisticated, creative, analytical, and technical output. So how do you imagine Betty's classroom experience changing over the coming 15 years? What's your vision of the ideal classroom that will best prepare Betty for this AI-infused world? We'll start with Rose and then go to Jim and Rowena.
Thanks, Min. It's a great question to be posed. Now, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that AI is going to transform education. There's no question about that. The question is, we don't know how. So I'm not going to predict in what I say. I'm going to say what I would like to see happen. Because if we get it right, this is what I think we could see. So I'm going to see Betty, and I'm going to talk about Bobby, her teacher, because we want to have a teacher, don't we?
Yes.
And I'm also going to talk about the assessment system, because that's a key part of what will drive Betty to a better future. So I would like to see Betty as very self-effective. She understands where she wants to go. She knows how to learn. She is being encouraged to master learning, to master knowledge, and to be highly AI literate, so that she knows how to use AI technologies to help her to be the most effective learner that she can, to help her understand herself, to build strong metacognitive skills, to help her be really good at learning, but also to help her understand the world, because that's important too, and that's that knowledge mastery. And an assessment system that helps her to do that, where we see the subject disciplines as the medium through which she gains these advanced, sophisticated thinking and learning skills, the kinds of things that AI is not so good at. Because let's face it, we don't want learners to do the same things that the AI is good at. We need them to be much more sophisticated in their thinking and learning. So this is Betty. And her teacher, Bobby, also is there, able to orchestrate the appropriate use of technologies, including AI, in particular to help Betty and Bobby understand exactly how Betty is becoming effective as a learner, so that Bobby can help support her to be the most effective learner she can be. So the AI is very much in the background, but supporting that process. But because they're both highly AI literate, and we're focusing on those sophisticated learning and knowledge skills, then she's really set up to be self-effective in the world, to be able to prosper in an AI-enhanced world. That is what I would really love to see. And it does require that integrated assessment, teaching and learning, training for educators, and embracing of quite a different way of thinking about what it is we want young people to be able to do as we move forward in what will inevitably be an AI-enriched world.
That's right. So AI literate students and teachers.
Absolutely.
Jim?
I think Betty will really look forward to getting to her classroom. Her classroom will be this really special, human-centric place. She'll have her learning device. We'll probably have learned by then that mobile phones and personal devices coming in to the classroom doesn't work, but that learning devices are really important, they're intuitive, and that you can use with pencils, that you use voice more, that you can use much more intuitively, and that can be controlled by Bobby to restrict certain types of content and certain types of interaction and not constantly bother her. So one of the attractions of coming to the classroom is that it's not full of notifications, it's not full of noise, it's a more peaceful place, and it's a human place, because she will have done her homework in advance. So the flipped learning will be pretty well embedded. The flipped learning model will be embedded. So most of the instructional element of her learning, because the knowledge will still be really important, will happen at home. And then she'll come to school knowing what she's supposed to know, hopefully, and with Bobby knowing whether or not she knows what she's supposed to know. And occasionally Bobby will need her to struggle in the classroom. Very important in the world of AI that she still learns to struggle, because AI makes everything easier, and if we think that life's going to be easy, we don't learn anything. And so learning is struggle is a fundamental part of learning. So Bobby's going to have to help her struggle, but struggle in a way that feels constructive, that is social, that's collaborative, and has an element of fun attached to it. And then she wants to come to school. She doesn't have an attendance problem. It's full of joy and struggle.
15 years from now, I think no doubt AI will be well integrated and embedded in all aspects of our life, whether it's school or work.
So that's an assumption, really.
Yeah, definitely. And the traditional way of learning, where it's trial by error, so that you can slowly build your expertise and develop that judgment, is going to go away when we're defaulting always to AI to come up with the solution. So I think it's really important that we have to, in today's classroom, we have to help the likes of Betty to develop that human agency. How do you keep them, self-motivated and not rely on AI, over-rely on AI? How do they develop that judgment? And I think classroom should be a collaborative laboratory where students are having interactive discussion, where they're building on each other's ideas, where they're learning how to build consensus. And so that's something that we keep in mind when we're building our product, Good Notes Classroom, how to create those, how to facilitate those moments so the student or teacher can orchestrate these learning moments or teaching moments. So for example, we would, our product makes it super easy for teachers to project a student's work that's worthy of discussion onto the digital whiteboard that we have, so that you can facilitate and have students build on the perspectives or analyze it or discuss it together. We need to encourage more of these in today's classroom versus the more assessment-based education system.
So even more meaningful interactions between
more
students
meaningful interactions.
and students. Jim, AI is often described as having enormous potential to transform teaching and learning, but there remains a lot of fear and uncertainty, especially among educators, about the risks and even existential threat of AI. You're an active member of the House of Lords here in the UK. How are policymakers thinking about the management of the risks that AI poses while capitalizing on the opportunities that AI offers to Betty's classroom?
Yeah, look, this is a really hot subject in Parliament, with plenty of people just giving up on whether regulation can do anything to control big tech. Rose and I were debating this the other day. But we're actively debating it. Last night we were debating the new data protection bill, which is pretty boring, but fundamentally important. Last week we had the launch of the AI Opportunities Plan, which is trying to put AI right at the heart of the growth ambitions for the economy of the nation. Now, what you'd have to then do is balance, as you say, the opportunity with the potential downsides. Are these platforms, when you're going on 365 and using Copilot, which is owned by the same people who essentially own OpenAI, are they hoovering up all your data? A Google on Classroom hoovering up all children's data, and what are they doing with it? And so one of the things that the government agreed last night, the Information Commissioner's Office will do, is publish a mandatory code around children's data and around how that is going to be dealt with. I think that will be really helpful. We're yet to see what the code might look like. But the principle that children have digital rights, they need to be protected, is part of building trust and confidence in this technology, because the technology is going to make it a lot easier for teachers, I hope, if it's led well and designed well by wonderful people. But we've got to do that on a basis of trust. And that means that there's a certain amount of active consent and design principles where you're getting tech companies to design safely from the off, not adding safety in after something bad has happened and when regulators tell them to.
That's fascinating, and can't wait to see where that goes. But what you just said about children having digital rights, that's what a point that we could all agree on, right?
Definitely.
Rose, Jim was alluding to this earlier when he talked about learning and struggling. I was so happy to hear you earlier talking about how learning is inherently difficult, and that if we all think back to when we really learned something, and my PhD was certainly very, very difficult, it required effort. But many people talk about how AI is going to make learning easier. So how should our teachers encourage students like Betty to want to make that effort when any answer seems readily available with AI today?
Yeah, it's such an important question, and I loved the struggle and joy in your description, Jim. There are a few things I'm sure about. I've said I'm sure that AI will transform education, and I am. How? We don't know. One of the other things I'm sure about is that this moment in time is supremely important. And it's a moment when we, as humans, have to recognize we've got to get way smarter. This is not a moment to dumb down. We now have these AI technologies. And what we must do is recognize that this isn't a finished work. Our intelligence hasn't finished evolving. We can be way more intelligent than we are now. And we need to be more intelligent because we now have these tools. And that means we've got to work harder, more strenuous mental effort, which is quite a hard message, actually, to convey.
That's right.
Particularly when you've got technology companies saying, oh, AI is going to make this effortless. No, I'm sorry. Learning is never effortless. The things I've valued most in my learning have been the hardest. I remember when I was doing computer science and I was told by my tutor I was going to build a compiler. I thought, I don't even know what one of those is. So that's going to be great. This is going to be an interesting term. It was the hardest thing I ever did. But I did it, and it was so satisfying. It was hugely effortful. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely, we have to find ways to motivate.
That's right.
People to want to engage in that strenuous. And I think you're right, Jim, it's got to be joyful as well as, strenuous. But absolutely, honestly, one of the things that worries me the most is that we dumb ourselves down, we inappropriately offload important cognitive activity to our AI, and then we won't be able to do it anymore.
That's right.
And we need to make the right decisions about that and recognize that actually, no, we have to become smarter.
Yeah.
And actually, that's great. We can become smarter because we've got the AI. So I really, sorry, you can tell I'm
it's
quite
great.
passionate about
Yeah,
that.
It's great, a call for us to all get smarter.
Yeah.
But I think the point you're making there, cultivating that intrinsic love and motivation for learning is more important than ever when there are much easier ways to get to the answer, right? So I think how do we do that is going to be a challenge for educators. Rowena, you are creating an AI teaching companion for teachers with GoodNotes Classroom.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about, precisely everything we've just discussed here, designing AI for educators, and how could educators teach differently while maintaining that struggle with AI in GoodNotes Classroom to benefit students like Betty?
So study shows that less than 50% of teachers' working hours are spent actually interacting with students. And that is the part of teaching that matters the most. So we decided we're going to look at how, we looked at how AI can really help teachers be more effective in those precious contact hours. So picture this, right? We designed a product where teachers can watch Betty, Bobby can watch Betty, problem solving in real time, and be able to step in and intervene or comment and feedback when needed. So that is the biggest motivation for a student. Someone's watching over my shoulder, and this tool or technology allows teachers to do that for everybody in the classroom, not just the physical person that they're standing in front of. And our AI grading also can help surface patterns in the classroom where students are maybe approaching the problem in a similar way. And if the teacher feels like, okay, they're heading not in the right direction, there's a misunderstanding, then they can have the option to choose what to do. They could pivot the lesson, or they can pull a few students aside with targeted support. And a new feature we're working on takes that even a step further. We're allowing teachers to use AI to generate hints just the way they like, not uncontrolled, with teacher in the loop. And that gets dynamically pushed to student based on their work. So teachers always in control, and they know how best to intervene because they know their students. They interact with them on a daily basis. So that's how we're thinking about using AI to help teachers be more effective.
Fascinating. Let's take a look inside a few classrooms that are currently using that today and see how it really works.
We came across GoodNotes very early on because they were the leading market note-taking app. There is nothing else out there that allows us the freedom to do all of the things that we want to do within the classroom.
GoodNotes Classroom is a really impressive piece of technology which enables us to communicate effectively both the content that we're delivering to students but also getting feedback from the students through it.
What GoodNotes Classroom does is first it syncs your notes to the teacher's notes, so you can see what the teacher's writing in real time and the teacher can see what you're writing in real time.
Today I was using the ability to project onto the whiteboard but not have the student names appear, so I could sort of demonstrate different student answers without putting any student into the fear that my work's going to be displayed.
Students can also see each other's work, and then they can think like, oh, that's a good idea they were having. I didn't think, oh, my classmate would come to this with this viewpoint or not.
There's also the AI option, obviously, that allows the teacher to go through the marking much quickly and gives them more time to spend on the actual teaching process.
I can mark areas that I want to look at and group them together. Even better, sometimes the AI tool will group together some of their answers. So I can actually see, okay, these students have answered this way, and this student has maybe gone off in a slightly different direction.
Makes things easier to store, it makes things easier to mark, to assess, and also to see how everyone is working on their progress.
One of the really important things about GoodNotes Classroom is it provides that opportunity for students to engage with AI in a safe environment, in an environment where we know the product is well resourced, it's well designed, it's got all the safety and security we'd expect within it.
This is really the next stage in marking for teachers and the use of AI within the classroom. And it is really going to enhance our teaching experience within the classroom in ways that we don't yet really understand, to change the way that we teach. This is useful on every level. There is no way in which we would ever want to go backwards. And so I'd say just go for it, embrace it, and it's just a wonderful journey to be.
Is seeing teachers like these, students like these, that bring huge smiles to our face, and that makes us so excited to go to work every day. So going back to you, Rowena, could you share a bit more about how you decided which AI and non-AI features to prioritize when you were building GoodNotes Classroom?
Yeah, we really built this in collaboration with teachers. We interviewed dozens and dozens, probably more hundreds even, of teachers. We observed them in the classroom. And our starting point was always, okay, what's the best technology to solve teachers' problems in the classroom, right? Whether it's AI or not. We don't always have to use AI. I'll give you an example. When we were interviewing some teachers, they were talking about the pain, how cumbersome it is to do digital grading, right? Switching between students' files. Some teachers even told us that they would collect all these digital assignments, print them all out, just so that they can lay it all out and be able to compare and review across questions or pages the way they would normally do it in a paper world. So, you know, our class viewer, which is a carousel into students' notebooks, really allow teachers to seamlessly swipe between students and see their work. And that wasn't with AI, right? That's just really good user experience. And it gives them the flexibility to view students' work by question, by page, the way they would normally. And that's how we wanted to integrate with, you know, their existing workflow already. But another problem that we heard was where AI was a good solution. So a lot of teachers, they would resort to doing multiple choice questions because it was faster to grade, easier to compare on the class level. But we use AI, and our AI can recognize students' handwriting, group similarities by intent. So even if students were answering the same question differently, it would still be grouped together. And this allowed teachers to be able to use these more creative, open-ended question form without sacrificing the efficiency of automated grading. So that's where we thought AI could really solve a problem.
Yeah. Fantastic. Jim and Rose, do you have any reflections on this very real case of AI usage in the classroom?
Well, for me, you know, I talked earlier on in Betty's classroom being somewhere where they'd have learning devices that were intuitive, and you know, by design were safe and by design learning environments, and that's what I like about what I see from that. And you know, great to see young people themselves talking about it.
That's so right.
We could hear it from both sides of the table, if you like, and that's really exciting. It's got to be intuitive. You know, we've got a big adoption problem with this technology, where you know, there's a huge workforce of teachers around the world. They're hearing about AI. Probably if they're coming to Bett, they're early adopters by and large. And so they might be using it. But what about the people who aren't here? How are we going to persuade them to use it? We're only going to persuade them if you can just use it without really having to think about it, without having to be overly trained in it, trained in a pedagogy rather than in how to turn it on and off.
If I can make agreed, a kind of a wider point
Please.
About the pedagogy piece, I think there's something really interesting here in terms of an opportunity. You know, we know that over the years that we've advanced AI and built these smart technologies, we've also understood a huge amount more about how the brain learns. So we understand a lot more about what effective pedagogy looks like. We've understood a lot more about cognitive science. We also know that educators are really interested in this. Many, many educators really want to understand the science and want to put it into their practice. And so this is a wonderful moment to blend those two things together, because, of course, the AI can really help us to drive using what we've learnt about cognitive science, using what we've learnt about how people learn, and helping that to enable the kind of pedagogy that teachers want to have in place. And I think that's quite a motivator for teachers, because it's speaking to what they really care about, which is how do I be the most effective teacher, and helping to see how the AI connects to that. So I think there's a sort of a larger point that's really important when we think about AI and pedagogy.
What an opportunity, yeah.
It's a huge opportunity. I mean, of course there are challenges.
Yes.
One shouldn't, underestimate that this is not necessarily a smooth ride. But the opportunities are enormous, and therefore it's really worth trying to make sure we do leverage those opportunities.
All right, we're going to end on a fun one, everyone. For the whole panel here, what is one uniquely human quality that Betty should cultivate to thrive in our AI-infused world?
Look, we're going to be in this world of ever more capable machines. Our only hope for Betty in outcompeting these machines is to be a better human. And so that's about love.
Oh.
So how can we properly nurture not only the social and the emotional health of Betty, but her ability to form really good relationships? Because in the end, all we know about whether or not someone goes on to lead a happy and fulfilled life is defined by their ability to form and secure strong relationships.
Absolutely.
Can we nurture that in her classroom, please?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cannot agree more.
Oh, given all the, yes.
Definitely.
Cheers for love.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm biased by all the recent headlines we see in the news. I think perspective building is really important. Teaching students to have empathy, have cultural awareness, how to be open-minded and more accepting of new ideas. I think if we can have perspective building as a key, we could avoid a lot of the problems we're seeing today.
So true. I mean, obviously, when we talk about AI, we think about the technology, but of course, ultimately, it's a people challenge. It's all about the people. And you're right, this is about humanity. What we're facing at the moment is a huge challenge for us as humans. And so we have to look at what makes us human. And it is our vulnerability. It is our ability to empathize with others. They are absolutely the things that are super important. And the AI cannot do. And I think that's something that we really have to remember. The AI learns largely through data, through disembodied experiences of the world. Okay, robots have some embodiment, I accept that. But in the main, it's disembodied. We feel, we experience, that's how we learn. And that's what we've got to hold on to. And that speaks to the love, the compassion, the empathy. It is about that feeling and understanding the importance of that. And I do feel, importantly, that does include vulnerability. And that we shouldn't shy away from that, because that is something that helps us to be more empathetic, helps us to understand other people's needs, and does, without question, differentiate us from AI.
Oh, what a hopeful note to end on. So on behalf of all of us here, on behalf of all of us at Good Notes, I want to thank this extraordinary panel. Would you please join me in giving them a big round of applause?
Thank you.
We also want to thank you for coming out today to join us for this important discussion, and also to thank all these schools that are part of the Good Notes presence here at Bett. You'll find many of them presenting at our booth. We'd love for you to come and join us and continue this conversation at our booth SL81. And if you're interested, after hearing what Rowena talked about in terms of Good Notes Classroom, feel free to scan that QR code, and we'll be connected that way. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.